I can't stress this enough to anybody else who may be competing because it is so stressful. Those 10 minutes before you walk into that room is easily more stressful than those 10 minutes that you're in that room. You know so much about that product and you know so much about that company that you sit down and you're like, I am Spot Logic, I am XYZ, and you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Everything you know is either in your notebook or in your head, and it's just this feeling of confidence that you need to go into that room with in order to get through those 10 minutes.
Welcome back to the Thoughts on Selling podcast. Today it is my pleasure to have Nina Iannuzzi joining me on the podcast, connecting all the way in from Amherst, Massachusetts. Nina and I met at the National Intercollegiate Sales Competition a couple of weeks ago at Bryant University that Stephanie Boyer puts on, and Nina was one of the 5 finalists in that podcast. So everybody at UMass Amherst and everybody in Massachusetts are incredibly proud of how well she did. Nina, welcome aboard.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here today.
So first question, Nina, who is Nina?
So I'm a college student. I'm a sophomore right now studying management in the Isenberg School of Management at UMass Amherst. I've always had a little bit of a competitive drive. I've bounced around a lot in what I've wanted to do, but I always knew from a very young age that I wanted to be in business. I didn't really know how, but my dad is a CEO, so I wanted to follow him. And I saw the lifestyle he was living, and I really just wanted to embody him. So I kind of took that from a young age and went with it. I started my first business in like 5th grade, just selling like slime and gum to my classmates. And then I went on to high school where I joined DECA, but I was also an athlete. So I was very competitive in many ways. I've always carried that with me. And then I brought that to college. And I mean, Isenberg is a great program. And I really didn't know if I would get in or not. And when I did, it was so empowering. And so that kind of just fueled the rest of my spirit. I'm a very creative person. I love to talk. I'm a very big talker. I'm competitive, like I said, and I love to travel. Through like my traveling experience, I've picked up on cultures around the world and how they communicate. And it's just, it all ties back into Isenberg and what I've learned here. And just, I'm always growing as a person. I'm always trying to grow, trying to be better than I was yesterday. So it's kind of me in a nutshell. I could talk about it for hours on hours, but I know we don't have unlimited time here, so that's what it is.
So you've been selling since 5th grade? Is that what you said?
Just about. I mean, you could probably go back to my preschool teachers, and I was probably trying to draw little stick figures of people and sell them to them for a quarter or something, but that's a little past my memory. 5th grade's the earliest memory I have of selling.
That's so funny. Well, some of us will say everybody always sells. If you want something, if you're buying something, if you're selling something, if you want to take an extra day of vacation, you have to sell that idea to someone, right? If you want a promotion, you have to sell that idea to someone. If you want an extra bag of popcorn at the movie theater, you have to sell that idea to someone, whether it's someone else paying for it or the person behind the counter who doesn't have the time to give it to you. Everybody's selling. And selling is communicating and enrolling people to action. It's that simple. There doesn't have
It's
to
persuasion.
be persuasion. Absolutely. There doesn't have to be money changing hands. It can just be causing someone to do something different. So you're at the Isenberg School. My son Jonathan also went to Isenberg. I went to UMass and went through the Isenberg School. He was in sports management, and he's got a podcast, which we'll mention just briefly for the Long Run podcast. And it's a great place to go to school.
It's amazing. I love it here.
Yeah. So let's talk about the collegiate sales competition. When did you first hear about it?
I first heard about it. So it's actually my first semester in the sales club that we have here at Isenberg. And on our first meeting, we walked in and they gave us a rundown, kind of the syllabus week of classes. So it was a lot of just dumping out what would happen in the semester in the club and what opportunities were arising. And I saw the NISC sales competition, and that really piqued me because I did DECA in high school. So I was very aware of competitions in the business world.
What's DECA?
So DECA is very similar to kind of what NISC is. It's more prolonged. So you join it's a club in high school, you join, and you either do the role play side of things or you do the presentation side of things. I chose the role play side. So it was very similar setup to NISC, but in this case, you would take a bus, you'd get on a bus with everybody on your team, and the teams were much bigger. I think we had about 25 of us, and we went to Mansfield, just a couple towns over from where I'm from, and we competed in our district competition. There, you get the case 30 minutes before you compete, and you have to create an entire business strategy, whether it's a marketing promotion or, need more profit, avoiding bankruptcy, stuff like that. It can be anything, and you get it 30 minutes before, you have your partner, and you plan. And you for 30 minutes, all you get is a blank piece of paper and a pencil, no computers, no phones, nothing. And you plan and you plan and you plan. You walk in and you present to the judge, and that's that. And then you move on to Boston. I was able to move on to Boston twice, and you do the same thing, but at a much larger scale. That's at the Prudential Center. And that's an amazing weekend. It's 3 days and it's a big networking event, very similar to NISC. Everybody's walking around in suits, but you're in high school, so it feels a lot different. But it was very similar to NISC. That's why the NISC competition sparked me because I was like, I feel like I've done this before. That's how I first heard about it, was that first day of sales club.
Well, I don't think you and I bumped into one another until the final round.
Yep, it was that final round.
And you were such a cool cucumber, Nina, that you noticed that the phone I had stuck to my head was just a prop. There was no actual emergency going on as I interrupted your sales call with the head of revenue operations. I was surprised that you caught that because I didn't think that was visible. So you heard about NISC. Before we go there, tell the listeners about your sales club. What's the sales club at UMass?
Yeah, so we're actually a pretty small club. It's my first semester, but I've been made aware that just a couple semesters ago, there was about 5 people in the club. And now we've grown to there's probably about 40 active members of our club right now. And it's student ran, student funded. We have Professor Glennon. He's our faculty advisor, but the students that are on our executive board really put in all their effort, and they bring in companies, and we get to listen to companies every week. We have meetings every single week, and everybody talks, and it's a very intimate setting, I would say. Everybody's very familiar with each other. We all know each other's faces. And it's one of my favorite things that I've done here at UMass. I love the sales club so much. Everybody on the executive board, I've become very close with. And then within the sales club, you try out for the teams for the competition. So that's how we ended up with our 10 that ended up going to NISC.
Yeah. Were you disappointed that UMass Amherst wasn't selected as one of the best dressed teams?
A little bit. I mean, my friend Joe, who was on the team with me, he would definitely have something to say about this. He wore his fanciest suits he owns, and when we didn't get called up, he was a little disappointed. I think that those Tampa girls that did end up winning, they were all coordinated all weekend, so they kind of had it in the bag, but we all looked great. None of us didn't dress to impress, so.
I was not aware that the awards went to that kind of stuff. I was a little surprised, but it was
Me
great.
too, and like the social media side of it, I didn't know they were paying attention to that stuff. If I make executive board, I might be implementing the strategy of matching outfits just so we can bring some grand award home, but that's a little bit down the line.
As a former athlete myself, there's something about putting on the uniform, lacing up the skates, putting on the jersey, putting on the helmet, whatever it is. It gets you in the mindset of team performance or competition. So what sports are you involved with?
Yeah, so in high school, actually, I think I started skating when I was 2 years old, just right when I could walk. And I played hockey for 16 years of my life. So that was pretty much my whole life. I dabbled in other things like lacrosse. I played soccer when I was a kid. I did a little cross country, but hockey was always my main thing. That was my big thing.
Do you still skate at UMass?
I don't skate here at UMass because the club team here, they're very committed. And as much as I absolutely love hockey, I wouldn't have time to enter these competitions and do everything else that I would want to do with all the opportunities on campus. So I decided to leave the skates at home and play when I can, play some pickup here and there. But I decided to put that aside for my academics. It was a hard decision, but it's all right.
I don't know. There are some good rinks on the South Shore, and there's some good rinks right within walking distance on campus. So
Oh yeah, I've been to the open skate down in the Mullen Center a couple of times. It's always a good time, especially with my friends who don't know how to skate. I like doing circles around them and they feel funny.
So this brings up an interesting topic that good athletes frequently
Mhm.
make great entrepreneurs.
I've heard that before because in the data that I've seen to back it up is just the fact that we've been working with a team for so long and we've observed so many different coaches that you know what works.
Yeah. And it's, thinking about cross country, if you're out in the middle of the field and one of your laces break, that's no excuse. You don't get to call Uber. You figure out how to put your shoelace together and then you keep on running.
That's like if it's playoffs in hockey and you turn a little bit the wrong way or you shoot the wrong way and your wrist gets a little sore, everything's on the line. You have to keep going.
As my coach used to say, suck it up, buttercup, right?
That's exactly what my coach used to say. Suck it up, buttercup, or move on to bigger and better things.
That's it. So you got onto the NISC team. You journeyed all the way to Smithfield, Rhode Island. So what was that like? Did you go on a team bus? Did you go on a school bus together?
No, so we actually, since we're student ran, we had to keep the funds pretty tight. So we all ended up carpooling down together. We think we brought down like 5 cars because everybody's going in a different direction. So we all carpooled down together and we met at the hotel.
So give us a little bit of background on NISC. Do you remember how long it's been around?
I believe it was 2019 was the first competition, maybe 2017.
Yeah, it's been around for a bit. I don't remember exactly either. And it's grown each year. There are about 275 or 350 participants this year.
Yeah, I think I checked with Stephanie Boyer. I think at the end she said it was around 280 or 275. So right around that area. Yeah,
We may have lost a few due to travel issues because we had some flight challenges.
that's what I heard.
Those of us that were local didn't have that excuse. We showed up and we got it done. So as salespeople, if we're calling on someone in person, we may go to the lobby and sit down. There's going to be someone to the right of us and someone to the left of us, all selling different stuff. If you're selling widgets, they might not be selling widgets. They might be selling the 300 mile per gallon carburetor, or they might be selling the agentic AI tool that's going to solve everyone's problem. And the next person over is selling, next generation Kool-Aid. Everyone's got something. And so you show up and there's 280 other contestants there. How'd that feel? Was it exciting? Was it terrifying?
It was definitely very exciting. It was definitely nerve-wracking though, because walking into the initial room where we're signing in and getting our badges.
That huge gym?
Well, that it was right outside the gym. So we hadn't seen many of the other competitors yet. And I think we were a couple minutes behind schedule because we walked into that big gymnasium and it was a sea of people and everybody's standing up and talking to each other and everybody's bouncing around and you don't know who in the room is a judge, you don't know who in the room is a recruiter. And so you're just kind of putting on your game face right away and sitting down and trying to get in the mode and you have no clue what's coming and we're all just waiting for somebody to step on the mic and tell us what to do. And it was definitely a surreal experience. It was very exciting because you could tell from the energy in that gym that everybody was so excited to be there and everybody was so happy that the weekend was getting started. I mean, the energy in that gym was unreal. It was so fun talking to everybody and I was looking at the competitors list before we went and I was like, wow, these are some pretty big schools. But then I was talking to some people and everybody has different accents and everybody has different experiences. And I was like, wow, like this is real. Like people flew here for this. Like it was definitely a surreal experience.
Yeah. I remember walking into that room Friday morning and my first impression was there's 1,000 suits in here.
Yeah,
1,000
that's what it
people wearing
felt
suits.
like.
I was wearing, logoed gear. I was wearing a button-down shirt that had thoughts on selling on it and a pair of slacks. I was not in a suit. I'm allergic to suits. So, you work for Google, you don't need to wear a suit, right? So that was my first impression. It was big and it was loud and it was high energy and everybody was feeding on it. It was awesome.
Everybody was going off each other. It was great.
So one of the things that I thought was done incredibly well was Pete Smith, the founder of SpotLogic, did a really, really good job of helping to prepare all of the participants, all the contestants. He did a lot of sales enablement around his sales enablement tool. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed how a couple times I don't know if you're aware, but we had Zooms a couple times to be able to talk and answer any questions. And there was just so many resources for us. that it felt like every question we had could be answered. I'd never at one point during our 2 months of preparation did I feel like, well, I'm sitting here lost, because there was always somebody to reach out to, or you could join that Zoom and all of your questions were easily answered and it was very easy to navigate. Steve definitely did a great job with that.
I was really impressed. He put a lot of effort into it. Spot Logic is a tool that helps sales teams be prepared for
Discovery. Discovery in
discovery.
every sales
Ding, ding.
call.
There you go. Good
Oh,
discovery.
I can answer questions about Spot Logic all day. I feel like it was my life.
Yeah, he did a really good job. And so then early Friday afternoon, there was speed selling. How did that go?
That was fun. I wasn't aware that we were participating in the speed selling until about a month before we competed, which is ample time to prepare an elevator pitch. It was kind of, in my mind, I think it was on the back burner. I was so worried about the role plays. So my speed sell, I wrote it down, I memorized it, I got it down, and then I'm sitting at the table and they're like, "Okay, go." And I was the first person to go and I was like, okay. So then I said it and I didn't do amazing on my first one, probably why I didn't make it to the finals of the speed selling. But the once I got the first one under my belt, because we ran it twice. So then the second time I did it, I polished it up. I thought both of mine were very good. I could feel my judge's attention right on me, but also just listening to everybody else's. It was so fun because we were sitting at a table with people from all over the country. So it was amazing to hear everybody else's experiences and kind of once they were done, you had a couple minutes to ask them about it, and it was really interesting.
And then from there, we went right into the individual 10-minute sessions, 10-minute sales calls. And the first sales call was with the head of sales enablement. The second was with Jordan, and the second was with Pat, the sales manager. The third was the CFO. And then the last was the head of revenue operations. How did those go? What was your experience in the role plays?
Full circle moment. The gentleman who was my Jordan, he was that round 4 judge as well. So I walk into the room.
That must have been helpful that you had seen him
Well, it
before.
was for me because I walked into the room and I was like, I already know him. We've
Yeah,
already talked. I'm
yeah,
comfortable with him. This is
yeah.
easy. So
And
that
then I
first
burst in.
round, yeah, and then you burst in and I was like, okay, never mind. I'm thrown off my plate. I have no clue what's going on. But that first round, it was really fun. So actually, I was sitting outside of the room waiting for them to tell us to go, and there was two gentlemen sitting on the couch, and the person standing next to me, he was one of my teammates. So we were like, let's go chat with them while we wait. So we're chatting, we're just talking. The gentleman actually knew my aunt, so we were talking about Dell. They worked at Dell together, I believe, and we were talking and then all of a sudden it goes 3, 2, 1. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I have to go. Shook his hand really quick, turned around, knocked on the door. And I was like, hello. And that first round, actually, I did not think I was making it past. I ended up doing discovery for about 8.5 minutes that first round. And I finished the call and kind of just like sat back and was like, okay, because I'm doing discovery. I think it's going great. He's answering my questions great. We're having a great conversation. All of a sudden, I hear that 9-minute warning, and I was like, I haven't sold a single thing. He doesn't even know what Spot Logic is. So I did a quick repositioning, position the product, and I didn't end up closing. I didn't get Pat's name or anything, so I kind of was very frustrated with myself. I talked to the judges. They loved my enthusiasm. They loved how passionate I was. They thought my questions were great, but they could tell I was defeated at the end of it because I didn't make it. I thought right then and there that I wasn't making it. And they were like, we have to do scores. Don't worry about it. And I walked out of the room and I was like, well, I'm guessing just gonna wait till tonight to see if I make it to round 2. And I'm sitting there and I had a really good feeling I wasn't making it. So I'm patting my teammates on the back who make it. I'm like, good job, guys. I'm so proud of you. And then I heard my name and I was like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Like, so I was so excited. I was on top of the world. And then immediately after that, we left the bar, we go home, back to the hotel, and we just start studying right away. We're studying Pat, we're studying round 2, we're prepping all of our questions. And we had done a little bit of prep on round 2 and 3, but nothing too extensive. So we're working until actually about, I don't think I fell asleep until 2:30 in the morning that night. And then it was a 5 a.m. wake up call for round 3. We woke up, we're like rubbing cold water on our face. I was sharing my room with 2 other girls that were on my team, and I unfortunately was the only one that made it to round 2. So they're patting me on the back. They're like, you got this, you got this. We're going to be by your side all day. And we're trying not to fall asleep. I ran to the gas station next door, grabbed a coffee, and off to Bryant we were. And then round 2, me and the gentleman of round 2, Pad, we had a great conversation. That call was amazing. That call, I'm excited to get the recordings back from that one, actually, because I really think that was one of my better ones. We had a great conversation. Everything went to plan. Then we get the announcements for round 3. And that was a big thing for us because in the sales club, we had never sent anybody to round 3 or 4. This was our first time ever making it to that final round. So we're sitting there and we're like, all right, round 3, like, is this happening? And 4 of our team members, including myself, 4 of us get called to round 3. And we are on top of the world. We're like, wow, like, this is incredible. This is because we only practiced round 3 for one day because it was not in the scope of what the club had seen before.
Nina, did you find that round 2 and round 3 felt easier to you or harder?
I think I would say round 2 felt easier because, I mean, my first round call did not go as planned and it worked out. So I was like, as long as I don't do discovery for 9 minutes this time, I know I can do it. And I changed up my strategy a little bit. I normally wear an Apple Watch and I disconnected my Apple Watch from the band and just had the little square and had a timer on it. So I was like, okay, I need to keep myself accountable. So I think changing that up really helped, and I was very calm walking into round 2. So I think round 2 felt easier.
So round 1 was the sales enablement manager. 2 was the sales manager. Round 3 was the
CFO.
The
So it was
CFO.
completely different.
Completely different, right?
And
so
you're going from talking about discovery to talking about money. And that's a
about
completely
numbers.
different conversation.
Yep.
So round 3, we get our names called and we're like, wow, okay, let's go sit down, relook at these numbers, and know exactly what we're talking about. I've talked many times with the judge I had for round 3. She's an amazing woman. And we were having that conversation, and I really felt like we were connecting very well. But she was very good at being I mean, when you're dealing with money, you have to be tough, you have to be hard. You're risking your company's most important asset. So you have to be a hard buyer. So she definitely gave me, no pun intended, she gave me a run for my money. And she was very tough, but it almost helped me because it allowed me to realize that, okay, if I can't get the money person on board, nothing's going to happen. So round 3, I definitely think was more difficult, but it changed my perspective. It was eye opening.
Yeah. So I did role plays for all 4 of the sessions. So I was Jordan, I was Pat, the third was Jamie.
Jamie Abbott.
Yeah. And the first 2 profiles were relatively easy for me because I've been in that role before. I've never been a CFO, right? And I'm a numbers person. I'm a data geek. I can do numbers, right? But that's not what I do every day. And it was absolutely fascinating for me to see. So going back to your watch tactic, there was in either the first round or second round, I had one participant actually look at his watch every minute. And it was disconcerting to me as the buyer. And he had this pressure of making sure he was on track. And in reality, sales calls are never like that, right? Sales calls are sales calls. And I have a coaching client at IBM. We did some prep before her call. There was a meeting with 2 senior people, a mutual insurance company. And we noticed that both of the 2 women had been with a company for more than 20 years. And so the first question she asked after they sat down was, so I noticed that both of you have been with a company for 20 plus years. What keeps you here? They talked about that for 20 minutes.
Wow.
20 minutes. Did it help her get to where she wanted to go in that meeting? No. Did it help her to build a relationship with those 2 people? Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of why I got through that round 1 call was because although every question, I think I ended up getting maybe 5 or 6 questions out, and he was answering them in so much detail. But he mentioned that my active listening and my attentiveness to his response is what made him excited because it's not like I was like oh my God, he's talking so much. All I'm thinking about is my time. It allowed us to have more of a conversation, and I got to absorb all the information he was telling me.
So I was in sales enablement at Oracle, and we used to say that Oracle salespeople had two forms of communication: talking and waiting to talk. No active listening.
No active listening.
And no disrespect to my Oracle brethren. All the Oracle people I worked with were great. Some of them even listened. So have you ever done theater?
I haven't.
So if you're planning a future in sales, or if you want to have fun and do something challenging, find the improv group.
Yeah, maybe I'll take a theater class.
Specifically improv.
Improv.
Theater, there's a lot of practice. There's a lot of memorizing scripts. With improv, you have to pay attention and you have to take care of your partner.
Yep.
And
those
be
are
on the two rules of improv.
Yeah, and with improv, it's all about thinking on your feet, if I'm not wrong.
You're exactly correct.
And that's all what sales is about, especially in our role play cases. I was in one scenario, and I mean, we had studied this case for 2 months. I knew every word front and back, and all my judges followed the case. But one of my friends mentioned that their judge, so the case was they had 300 reps, they were bringing on 150 more. Their judge threw off those numbers completely, and she was like, it messed me up. I didn't know what happened. And I was like, you have to be able to just go with it. Whatever they say goes. But as they say, customer's always right. So you just got to listen to what they're saying.
And sometimes the customer's wrong. As Jordan, I might have gotten those numbers wrong once or twice. Whoops.
But it's how the buyer handles it.
Exactly.
It's how the seller handles it.
Right.
So
it's a dance. And these days, it's up to the salesperson to lead, because Jordan's never bought this before. Pat's never bought this before. They're faced with I know how what I'm doing now works. It may not work very well. We know we have to jump start it every morning at 8 o'clock. We have to pull that start on it. And every day at noon, we have to put more oil in. We know how it works. This new thing, we don't know how it works.
No clue. And I mean, with the product we were selling, it was AI. So everybody's concerned about AI. So when they hear AI tool, it's like, how are you different than anybody else?
Yeah. So you got to the CFO, and then you heard you were going to be one of the top 5 final contestants. I'm going to ask you the question that Michael Douglas asks all of his actors as they come off the stage in the Kaminsky method. How did that feel?
First of all, so they are going to announce the name, and I got called first. They said, student from UMass. Oh, it doesn't say which one, because UMass Amherst and UMass Lowell were both there. So my entire team, we're all like holding each other's hands, like, what's going on right now? And in my head, we were talking before I mentioned Joe.
The handsome, well-dressed one.
Exactly. I have no doubt he wears custom suits. I have no doubt that he will go very far in the sales world. And so in my head, I'm like, Joe won. It's Joe. And then they said my name. Everybody, my teammates are all freaking out because, again, we had never done this. This was the first time this has ever been done in the sales club history. And we're just a club, and we're going up against these different schools that have millions of dollars of funding, and they have sales majors. And in Isenberg, sales isn't a major. It's just the club. And we have a couple classes on it. There's not much to it. And so I heard my name and I kind of just didn't know how to react. I was like shaking. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And then I went up to you had to go up by Steph Boyer and stand there for a picture. And I was just like, what's happening right now? Like, it was a surreal feeling. And then I got to go back with my team. We're all jumping in a circle and I almost shed a tear. I was so proud of myself. I knew the opportunities that were going to come from that were just endless. So it was an on top of the world feeling for sure.
Was that the first time you met Stephanie that weekend?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Stay in touch with her.
Yeah, she's amazing. I had the opportunity to talk to her after announcements on Saturday afternoon were made, and she really is just an amazing person. She wants the best for everyone, and I got to talk to some of the Bryant students that study under her, and everybody has great things to say about her.
Yep, I've known her for a couple of years. She is a force of nature. So now you get sequestered into a room for prep. You're not allowed to hear what's going on outside, and then they knock on the door. It's like, okay, showtime. Then what happened?
I'm sitting in that room. I was the first person to enter the room. I'm sitting there with the 4 other contestants and everybody's talking. And I'm like sitting there staring at my notebook and I'm trying to study and everybody's talking and they want to play music. And I'm like just so stressed. I felt like I was the only one in the room that was stressed out. And they're like, oh, how many times have you competed? And I was like, oh, this is my first competition. And they're like, everybody else is like, oh, like, we've been here for the past 3 years. Like, I'm a senior. They were all seniors and juniors, and they all were sales majors from these big schools. And I was like, I'm a management major from a club, and I've never competed before. I really don't know how I made it to this room. Like, I was totally freaking out. And then they kept telling me 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. And it ended up being longer than 5 minutes. And I'm just like looking at the clock, looking down at my computer. And then finally we go. And I get up to that door, and I was just like, there's this sense of relief that you get when you walk through the door. You're so nervous before you enter these rooms. And I can't stress this enough to anybody else who may be competing, because it is so stressful. Those 10 minutes before you walk into that room is easily more stressful than those 10 minutes that you're in that room. You know so much about that product and you know so much about that company that you sit down and you're like, I am Spot Logic, I am XYZ, and you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Everything you know is either in your notebook or in your head. And it's just this feeling of confidence that you need to go into that room with in order to get through those 10 minutes.
And then some knucklehead bursts in and interrupts your sales conversation.
That was a plot twist. I was so in the zone. I was telling you, I was so in the zone that I thought it was real. I was like, he has to go. There's some big board meeting. And then I looked on your phone and I saw the timer and I was like, this is a play. We're acting.
Yeah, the judges were just as surprised because they didn't know it was coming in. Let's go back half a conversation. You said you were nervous until the thing started. It's like there's more nerves in the 30 seconds leading up to that first puck drop than all the rest of the game, right?
Easily, easily. Especially those 30 seconds before you're playing every scenario possible out in your head. But then you walk into that room and it's almost like a gust of wind goes over your face and it's whatever happens, happens.
What did you play in hockey? Were you a center?
I was defense, actually. I played left
Defense.
defense my whole life.
Wow, I started at defense. I mostly played left wing, but I played center a fair amount. And I always enjoyed getting that puck at puck drop.
I never really enjoyed forward. Me and the goalie were always buddies. I liked being by my goalie. But as a defender, because I mean, we get the puck less than the center may get it. And as a defender, like when that puck hits your stick, it's just like, all right, lock in. You know what you're supposed to do right now. Do it. And so it's pretty much the same feeling as walking into that room. You know what you're supposed to do right now and go execute.
So tell us about the rest of that 10 minutes, the 8 minutes after my interruption.
The 8 minutes after your interruption. I was a little thrown off, but we talked briefly before about how the situation should have been handled, but that wasn't on the forefront of my mind. I was walking through the steps. So my benefit of having him as my first round judge, I knew that he likes to explain a lot. So I knew I had to refine my questions and get to the point immediately. And I knew that in round 4, it was going to be different. It wasn't going to be rapport, positioning, agenda, discovery, selling, closing. I knew it was going to flow differently. And so I just walked into there thinking this is a conversation. I almost wanted to act like we were friends. I knew him.
That's always a good place to start.
Yeah, exactly. And so that 8 minutes after, we just kept going back and forth. And I mean, being a sophomore, a lot of the language he was using, I wasn't fully equipped to handle. And he was mentioning a lot of terms that I didn't really know, but he kept mentioning scope. And I wasn't fully understanding the question until about the 4th time. And I was like, okay, I kind of have a grasp on what he's asking. And I just kept answering every question the best I could. One thing I was very focused on because I could see myself. I don't know if you noticed, but right behind his head was 2 massive TVs playing the live stream. So I could see myself and I looked at myself and I had noticed that I was sitting in the exact same position the entire time. And I hadn't moved, I hadn't swiveled. And I was like, all right, if I have anything right now, I have my confidence and I have my smile. So I'm just going to keep going. And whatever happens, happens as long as I appear confident. So every word I said, whether it made sense or not, I just tried to convey it with as much confidence as I could. And it really made it so fun because I was able to just be passionate about Spot Logic and really try and get that deal closed. The next 8 minutes after recollecting myself was amazing.
Nina, this is a question I ask all of my coaching clients as we're prepping for calls. What was your goal for that 10-minute meeting?
My goal for that specific 10-minute meeting, let me see, I might have it right here. I had a contract written up that I wanted him to sign so badly. Here it is. Here's my fake contract. I wanted him to sign it so badly. I even pulled it out, I think, at like the 4 minute mark and just put it off to the side just so it would be in his vision. And I got the knock, the 9 minute knock, and I was like, I'd love to present you with this contract. And he mentioned something else, and I was like, okay, I got to push this contract a little harder. So I just kept inching it a little closer to him every time. And he didn't end up signing it, but that was okay. That was the end goal, to get him to sign that contract.
Right. So for you, the goal was to sign the contract. What was the goal for him?
For him, the goal for him, he needed to hear about the product. He needed to get on board. And no, he needed to have an idea that would be presentable to the board and something that he was behind,
Yeah.
so that he could have confidence bringing it to the board. And if we collectively were to walk into that board meeting together, I needed to have him on my side so that we were a team against them presenting this idea.
Right. For you, signing the contract was the goal. For him, having the resource in the organization was his
Yep.
goal. So his
Yep.
goal looked out a lot further than the contract. The
Definitely.
contract was just a vehicle to have Spot Logic in his business, helping
Yep.
with discovery. So it's great that you had a goal. And it's great that you introduced it by like putting it on the table and just pushing it towards him. Let's get back to the word scope. He used the word scope and you didn't know what it meant. Did it sound important?
It sounded very important. He mentioned it a couple times. It sounded very important because he kept saying it. And in sales, if they're saying one thing over and over again, that's something that's very important to them. That's something that they're very concerned about. So a big thing for me playing in the back of my head is, okay, what does he mean by the scope? Is he talking about the scalability of the product and where this is going to go? Is he talking about the overall output? I was trying to nail that down in the back of my head while also trying to convey and actively listen.
How might you have handled the word scope differently if you were in that competition again?
Yeah, looking back at it now, the first time he asked me, I think one of his questions followed the framework of, what is the scope of this project going to look like? And I thought there was many answers to that question. So, but looking back at it now, the scope of the project was, how is this project coming in? Where is it going to take us? And how much work is it going to be in the long run?
How long and how much?
Yep, those are the big two.
Right. So how would you have handled that word that you weren't familiar with in this particular context and it sounded important?
Looking back now, I probably would have, the second he said that and I didn't know what it meant, I would have, we call it a CRC. I would have clarified with him what exactly he meant by the scope of it. And then I would have responded with what I thought. And then I would have confirmed with him so that he didn't have to ask the same question 4 times and we could have nailed it down right then and there.
You've gotten some great training. You've gotten some great
My
training.
coaches, I applaud my coaches. They're all seniors. One of them's even a sophomore. He's in my grade, and the knowledge that they have is just incredible. They were the best coaches I could have asked for.
So the question I might have asked, so there are two ways to play it. One is, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. Can you explain what you mean? And sometimes you have the sense of, I can't ask that because it's going to make me look not informed. And I've been there and I've done that. The other way of doing it is to ask like a clarifying question, as you said. So what exactly do you mean by scope? What do you mean by scope?
Yeah. Well, because it's a broad word. And like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, they could have many different meanings with many different answers. So getting right down to that, exactly what he wanted, would have been key.
Yeah. So one of the most important criteria for being effective in sales is being a human being.
Yeah. Well, because if you're not a human being, and if this company, I mean, nowadays, if you're a company, you're not going to hire somebody who's not personable. AI can do that for you. So you need to find somebody who can talk as a human being and build those relationships and convey those ideas in a human way, or else you'll just get replaced by AI.
Right. And human beings can be vulnerable. Human beings can be uninformed on certain things. Human beings can forget stuff. Do you mind if I borrow a piece of paper? I left my notebook at home and I really do want to take good notes, right? 1 out of 50 people will go, you're an idiot. The other 49 will go, oh, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Because and I think as somebody in my position, being only a sophomore, I mean, I'm only 19 years old. So walking into that room and trying to embody somebody who is important person at this company, it was hard to not feel like I wouldn't have been that one of 50 because the person on the other side of the table, they know that I'm a student, they know I'm not a salesperson, but I need to put on that act.
And it went so good role play. In good role play, we forget all that. In good role play, when I was Jordan, the sales enablement manager, I was channeling my 20 years of running sales enablement, right? I had no real awareness. I mean, at some level I did, but I was in that role. I was talking with someone who had a potential solution for the problem I had in my head. So good role play does that. When we did role play at Oracle, we had people crying
Really?
in role plays. Yeah. Well, we broke them down, we built them back up because we wanted to move them from being product centric to being value centric in the same way that Pete at Spot Logic does.
Well, and that relates to how when you walked in with that timer, I was so spot logic that I was like, he has to go. He needs to leave this meeting. This isn't important to him anymore. And then I circled back to, okay, wait, this is role play. We're acting that was supposed to happen. So it is key to really sit down in that room and forget that you're a student, forget that you've been training for this, forget that you know the case. This is the company you work for and this is what you've been doing for years and you really have to channel that in or else you're going to seem like you're acting. It's when you watch a movie and the actors aren't good, you can tell that they're acting, but when you're watching a movie and you start crying, you forget that they're acting. This is a real story.
Willing suspension of disbelief. And if I had been more effective with my phone and it looked like a real call,
who knows, maybe I would have been like, oh, he has to go. Like this isn't fake.
So we're running up towards the end of our time. Do you have any final words for your fellow salespeople in training out there looking to take on the world and make it better?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sales is a major industry. And even if I'm in management and I never thought I would have a path in sales, but at the end of the day, sales is a part of everything. I think we mentioned earlier, you are selling every second of every day, whether you realize it or not. So entering a competition like this, even if sales has nothing to do with what you want to go into, it's going to further your knowledge, it's going to further your communication, and really just take that step and do it because I gained so much experience, I gained so much knowledge, so many opportunities, and really just put yourself out there. And it's such a rewarding feeling at the end of the day, knowing that you're really doing something to separate yourself from your peers and you're taking a step that is not comfortable. I mean, I stepped into that room and I knew that I had no sales experience, and some of the people on my team had already competed in this competition, and I didn't know what I was going up against. But your coaches, you have to have trust in your coaches because they know what they're doing and really just study the case. That's a big thing. Study the case over and over and over again. Know who you're talking to. I know some people who walked into the meeting and said the wrong name, and you really need to be able to study that case and just, enjoy the moment as well. When you get to the competition, it's easy to get overwhelmed with scores and people, but just enjoy the moment. It's a surreal experience. Everybody should do it. I firmly believe that. I mean, Stephanie Boyer is amazing. She puts on a great event. And every other competition, like it's a great, great, great opportunity to give you experience because especially as a sophomore, I haven't had an internship yet. So being able to have experience before you even enter the field, that's invaluable. Like there's nothing that can compare to that. So just do it. Go jump headfirst into the pool and do it.
Yeah, that's great advice. That is fabulous advice. And so for the listeners, I just want to point out that this is the future that's on here right now. This is the future of the sales organization. Intelligent, thoughtful, driven, smart, young people who are going to knock our socks off, who are going to need more and better support because they come out of the gate so good. So, Nina, this has been absolutely fabulous. Thank you for participating in this. Thank you for participating in your sales club. Thank you for being you and bringing your passion and energy to everything you do, because my guess is you do it everywhere. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lee. This was an amazing experience. I love talking to you today, and I hope anybody out there can take one piece of information from anything we just talked about and apply it to their lives, because everything that we talked about, I really just had a great time doing this. And thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your kind words.
Thank you, Nina. Another deep dive into the topic of sales excellence and the performance mindset. If you found this conversation interesting, I would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with a coworker or two. And to explore this topic in more depth, send me a note via the contact form on podcast.thoughtsonselling.com, or find some time for us to talk at meet.acellergroup.com. Thanks.